Hey everybody, I appreciate you watching. This is a review over the Mars Fire Red Tail Bowie knife. We'll go over the sheath system in a second. Let's start with the knife. I want to start at the tip, work my way back. You'll notice with the tip that it's centered in the overall axis of the knife. This allows for the most power and strength to be put behind that tip. Sometimes you'll have knives with tips that are too high and they feel awkward when you stab with them. They don't quite go in right because your force is going through the center of the blade, regardless of where the tip is. You need the tip to line up with where the force is going, just like you want a straight nail when you're hammering in a nail. Picture you using a cue ball and a pool stick. If you hit it off center, it doesn't transmit as much energy to the ball, right? It goes sideways. It's the same thing with a knife tip. A centered knife tip is going to transmit the most energy to whatever it's contacting. So I like K-bar, but notice how high that point is in the overall alignment of the blade. It's not going to be a particularly great thruster. This, however, will be. Another thing about this point is it's tapered. So you'll be able to see some of the other videos. In fact, there'll be a link in the description here of this knife enduring a lot of abuse to that tip. It can stab into wood and pry back and forth and not bend or break, even though it's that fine. But it's important to reduce the width of the spine as the width of the blade is reduced in order to maintain a consistent cutting angle. If you keep the spine thickness consistent and you shrink the width of the blade, you're going to end up with a very acute cutting angle that will not cut well. So here's the thickness of the spine, here's the length of the width of the blade. It's fine right here, but what happens when towards the tip, my width is only like that? That's not gonna cut very well. So with the reduction of the width of the knife, you need a reduction of the width of the spine, see, to maintain that cutting angle. So properly made knife is going to be like this, and as the width of the knife shrinks, so will the width of the spine. See if this is the cross section of the knife here. So same thing. Thick width here because we have wide width there. Thin here because it's thin there. That's the only way to maintain efficient cutting power towards the tip of the knife. The other thing that maintains efficient cutting power towards the tip is not having too much of a belly there. When you have a lot of belly, a lot of your force is just going to slide past the cutting material. See how even if I pull straight in, I'm really not pulling in, it's sliding past. Whereas if you have something like this, if I'm pulling down, I'm cutting right through it because this is pressing into the material and this is sliding past the material. That's why I like to not have a real heavy belly on my knives. I tend to stretch it out. So there's still curve, but it's stretched out over, say, 2 inches, as opposed to compacted right here within 1 inch. So centered tip, the thinning of the taper, and the stretched out belly is all gonna make this thing maintain a lot of really good cutting power, even towards the very tip of the knife. And again, you will not see that with a K-bar. And this one's freshly sharpened. Look at this. So this just shaved hair, right? It's not a dull K-bar. It's sharp, but it's not making these cuts. See? That's all it cut in. That is an edge geometry, a blade geometry issue. Here, go very up to the tip, and I just come right through. So that's a design difference, and you're not gonna be able to tell that just looking at it on the shelf. You gotta really know your knives and know design to be able to see something like that. Of course, you'll feel the difference when you're using it, but so that's just the tip. All right, what else do we have? Well, see how this wedge comes up here and then goes down? That's allowing me to get a little more mass towards the end of the blade. I like mass towards the end of the blade because one, that's the fastest moving part of the blade, right? Here is moving faster than here. If I have any object, I'm looking for we'll just use this. The amount of time it takes for the guard to move from point A to point B is some fixed time. This covers a much greater distance in the exact same time. This is moving faster. What that translates into is power and, of course, speed. This is the fastest moving part of the blade. This is the most deadly part of the blade when you're talking things like this, if you're talking about fighting with this thing. And so I like to have a little bit more mass out there because mass and speed equals goodness. You get more mass out there when you come up before you cut down for the Bowie clip. So a little extra mass out there, that's a good thing in my mind. I like it. I like a little weight out there as well. Now let's talk about the blade itself. Notice how the blade is kind of one continuous curve. It's curved the whole time. That's just going to help with whatever cutting surface you're engaging. There's going to be less pounds, there's going to be more pounds per square inch engaging that material because there's less of the blade touching. If there's more of the blade touching, it's going to be essentially applying less force. If there's less of the blade touching, such as with the curve, it's going to be applying more force because the same amount of force is being applied to a smaller surface area. That's why a stab goes farther than a chop. This is very small surface area. This is a wider surface area. And of course, if I were to hit someone with the broad side of my blade, that's not going to do anything. Put that same amount of force into a stab, it's going to go into my hand. So that's just physics. A curved edge will apply more pounds per square inch to whatever it's engaging because there's less surface area in contact with the material you're cutting. So that's going to be good. The other good thing about it is when it comes to food prep or something like that, which I use knives for quite a bit, this rolls kind of like a kitchen knife. So you can roll it. Kitchen knives are like the first Bowie knives, right? They're butcher knives. So this has that kind of action where you can roll down and cut with it. Just makes it very useful. Also makes it nice for skinning and things like that. So it's a versatile blade. It's not crazy. It's not curved like this one is curved, but it is still curved in such a way that it lends itself well towards just daily tasks. Curved blade. You'll also notice this little line here. It's differentially heat treated. The edge is hard, about 58 Rockwell hardness. The spine is nice and soft and springy. That just allows it to take a lot of abuse. And you can baton on this tip here. You can pry. I wouldn't do it, but you can. And I guess I would do it because I have done it. But it's not recommended because it's just not good practice. But you can. And you can baton with it. You can chop with it. You're never going to break it because it's hardened from here down and softened from there up. I actually further anneal it a bit just to make sure I get some softness up towards that tip so you have no chance of snapping off that tip. So that's another function, another added value of the knife. That's like the Japanese blades. They would do that with the Japanese katanas. Just quench the edge, leave the back soft and springy, and it makes for just a super durable package here. You've also got some of the jimping there. That's really just decorative, but it's also a nice purchase for your thumb or for your finger if you're doing some cuts of this nature. Getting to the guard. The guard is all brass and it is incredibly comfortable. I take a lot of time mating the guard to the handle because I don't want it to abrade your hand at all, especially if you're thrusting with it. Not only is it softened here on the back where you can't really feel the transitions, it's softened on the front as well. So if you wrap your thumb around there, it's nice and comfortable. There's no way this guard is going to cut you, and it's not going to get in your way. See how it really doesn't even stick down that far underneath the choil region there? So it's not going to get caught in brush. It's not going to get snagged by a seatbelt. Not going to get pulled out of the sheath. It's a nice trim guard, and that's what you want. The handle is Cocobolo, and you'll notice here it accommodates two grips really well. Firstly, just your standard grip right here, super comfortable. Use that for all sorts of, just utility work and things of that nature. And yeah, that's nice and sharp. But the other thing you can do here is you choke back and you've got a nice chopping grip. And I love this grip when I'm really sinking into wood, chopping wood, you know, just out in the woods, making shelter, what have you. Now the overall knife weighs 12.2 ounces with the balance point being right here in the center. That makes about 6 ounces on the blade, 6 ounces on the handle. If you choke back right out here, now you've got about 10 ounces up front and about 4 ounces you're holding. So that makes like that feels like a nice heavy chopping blade, even though the overall knife when you're holding it seems to be maneuverable and comfortable, but you can still choke back on it and get some really powerful chopping. A lot of good woodwork done with that. So I love chopping with knives. I want all my knives to be able to chop just because it adds such a degree of versatility to it when you're working in the woods. So the rest of the handle, it's just all super comfortable. This isn't going to bang your pinky when you're chopping. Sometimes you'll feel that shock translate into your pinky, especially with a real aggressive bird's head grip. This doesn't do that. It's nicely rounded there, so it's comfortable. And there you go. I think that's about it. I don't have too much of a taper here because he wanted the whole thing to be a little bit heavier. So I said, yeah, I think it'll be about 12 ounces when I make it from 3/4 inch stock with the design that we're talking about, and it being 12.2 ounces. So pretty close estimate there. As always, it's got the convex grind. I can't go into that now, but I've got other videos about the convex grind, why it's so useful and why I think it's the best grind around. So that there is your red tail Bowie. A lot of thought goes into it, a lot of work goes into it, and it's just forged right here. You know, I start with this, and I'm hammering it out, and I'm grinding it, I'm heat treating it, I'm doing it all here. My heat treat produces a very good fine grain structure. I'll show you a cross section of a broken blade. See, very, very fine. I mean, it's just almost smooth there, how fine the grain is. So I've been doing that for a while. I've got that worked out to a good system. So it's gonna be a good, durable edge. It's gonna hold its edge well. It's gonna resharpen well. It's never gonna give you any problems. And if it ever did, then I would do anything I needed to replace it, fix it, whatever. I don't mess around with that sort of thing because I'm making these by hand, so I take a lot of pride in them. All right, how about the sheath? So this is kind of cool. I really like this system for a number of reasons. I take off mine here. Doesn't have to come with this sort of sheath. It can come with Kydex or whatever, but this is what I like. Just super slim, and the clasp is right there on the front. This mimics the frog of the old Bowie knives. They'd use a frog and they'd put it in the pants and the frog would stop it from going down into the pants. You can still do that just using that flap there, or you can secure it better like this. Now secure like this, really the best way to carry because it's high and tight. It's not flopping around, it's not banging on stuff and banging on doors and getting caught on stuff and just being a nuisance. You can still sit down with this comfortably. If you need to adjust it, you can adjust it back and forth a little bit with the elbow. It hides, you know, it goes away, it disappears, you keep it there, and you can get it out in a hurry if you want to use it for conceal. So I like to carry it that. You can carry it also on your weak side, and then you could be prepared with, you go pistol here, and you can have your secondary right there. So it's a versatile way of carry. It's very deep carry if you want to. Like I said, you can put the whole thing just down into your pants and leave that catching on the edge. And it's got a lot of advantages. It's very clean, it's very trim, it's light. Take it off, put it in between your, you know, when you're driving, between your seat and whatever else is there. You can keep it right next to you while you're driving, get out of the car, take it out, put it back on, put it in the backpack. Get home, you can take it off, set it up somewhere where the kids can't get it, and relax on the couch. It's just not real clunky and it's really fast. But it's got retention. So the blade won't fall out, and that's because of these lips here. And they're hardened with beeswax. So that's hardened with beeswax, but it gives you a Kydex-like retention. Not as good as Kydex, but a Kydex-like retention. So that's great because you can have this right here. You don't have to defeat any clasping device. Again, if this were defensive encounter, and I've got it out, I'm ready to go. You don't need to defeat any clasping device. You can just grab it and go, and yet it's still secure. So huge advantages there. But some people like to carry low on the leg, kind of more tradition for American tradition style. So I've got this for it. Now this leather attachment will allow you to carry the knife in a more traditional way. Notice I'm using buttons for everything, snaps for everything, because it stinks to take your belt off. So just like that, and now I am carrying this a kind of a way that you may be more used to seeing, right there on the leg. Can't get a great view of it. Let me try moving you guys over here. Hey folks, look at that. So the one thing I need to add to this is a little leather tie there so it doesn't rock back and forth from the leg. But you can see how it works there. So you can carry it traditionally, and that's nice. And take it out and put it in and roll with it that way. These leather pieces in and of themselves are works of art. I take a lot of time chamfering the edges and rolling them and smoothing them out. Look at the flesh sides all smoothed here. This is all oiled with Obernoff. This is 100% brass hardware here. I mean, the sheath is not the throwaway part of this knife at all. There is no throwaway part. Hand peened brass, hand stitched all of this. This is not a machine. This is done by hand. Pretty painstaking, takes a long time. This is all, let's see, 8 to 9 ounce veg tan leather. And again, it's treated with beeswax and Obernoff. And see, I mean, I'm smoothing the edges. This is all done by hand. And it's a lot of work that goes into that. The beeswax treatment takes a lot of work after it's been wet formed. So this whole system here works together. It's super efficient. It's super handy. It is equally able to be carried in the woods as a tool or day-to-day for defense or as a backup. And it's just a super, super versatile knife here, the Red Hawk. Currently, this is going for $500. That price could go up because prices just tend to go up. So if you're watching this video, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years from now, the price might be different. But this one, I will just say, went for $500. And there you go. There's a lot of the thought that went into it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Before you leave, if you could hit the subscribe button and the like button, and if you would comment down below, I'd like to interact with you there. I'd like to hear what you think of these Bowie knives. If you're a Bowie knife collector, if you want one of these Bowie knives, if you want a custom Bowie knife, you know, something a little crazier like this guy with the hamon and all that, I can do all that. It's all hand forged here, and there's a lot of versatility. So we can do a lot, but yeah, do those things for me if you would, and if you enjoyed the video, and I thank you for watching, and stop by again for another review of some sort, or something else of that nature. Thanks.